Hey guys, it's Kaleigh, and I'm here to keep you up with everything going on in the sports world and letting you know what you need to know about happenings in the sports industry. So, this week we are going to be discussing the purchase of the Denver Broncos, and this information is coming from an article that I read from the Sports Business Journal. And this article really goes into detail about how the process for buying the Denver Broncos kind of works, and then how Rob Walton ultimately decided and was the buyer of the Broncos. And it basically also talks about the new rule changes that the NFL has established with regards to their franchise ownership rules. And so, specific points about this article is that the Denver Broncos were purchased by Rob Walton this month for $4.65 billion. Now, Rob Walton is an heir to the Walmart franchise, and his net worth is approximately $60 billion. So that's just a little bit of information about him. And this deal with the Denver Broncos exceeds the previous record for a U.S. sports franchise by over $2 billion. And actually, it's the highest price paid for any sports team in the world. So the previously highest sports franchise deal was in 2020 when Steve Cohen purchased the New York Mets for $2.4 billion. And so you can see now this deal is almost double that amount, which is just really groundbreaking and transformational for the world of sports, especially in the United States. And so then lastly, this deal demonstrates that the NFL's ownership rule changes are proving to be successful. And so I wanted to talk about a few of the rule changes that have been established in the past few years through the NFL. And the first is that in October 2018, NFL owners voted to eliminate a restriction that prohibited them from owning teams from other sports in NFL markets. So before this change, this rule was preventing potential buyers from bidding on franchises due to their other sports investments in the same geographical area. And now this rule change is allowing the pool for potential serious buyers to expand now that when teams are up for sale. Secondly, another ownership rule that the NFL recently changed involves the ownership stake of veteran families. Today, after the rule change, the control owner of veteran families can own as little as 1% of the team, lowering estate tax liabilities and making it easier making it easier to keep them off the open market. So this rule change helps maintain the infrequency of trades of controlling shares and makes it easier for legacy families to hold on to their clubs amid estate planning and succession issues. And finally, the league has raised its debt limit. So last summer, the NFL decided to double the maximum debt in team acquisitions from $500 million to $1 billion. So that's kind of the key highlights from the article, and then now I have a few takeaways I wanted to discuss. The first is that sports franchises' ownership rules constantly need to be evaluated and revised. So, as you can see within the past few years, the NFL's changes of this rules has now allowed greater success for the purchasing and higher purchases limits for these franchises, which ultimately make the NFL franchise and the specific teams that make up the NFL more valuable, obviously through the number that is associated with the price of the team. And then my second takeaway is that the U.S. sports franchises, particularly NFL franchises, prove to be good financial investments. So the article talks about how these NFL teams make a lot of their money through their media rights, and the NFL as a whole generates almost $10 billion in revenue just through media rights. So it's very successful, and for these people that are wealthy enough to buy these big sports franchises, it is proved to be a good investment and pay dividends for them throughout the process of owning a team. So that's all I have for you guys today. Stay tuned for what else is happening next week.